All right, welcome back to this week's episode of the show. Now, one thing that has been on my radar lately is a lot of people reaching out to me about celiac disease and skincare and whether gluten can be absorbed through the skin. So this is an excellent question. So to all of you who have sent me messages and asked me this question recently, this episode is for you. Welcome to the Healthy Celiac Show. I'm your host, Belinda Whelan from belindawhelan.com, and here you will learn to live your very best life with celiac disease. So we are going to be talking all about health-related topics because you, my friend, are more than just a woman with celiac disease. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss an episode, and welcome to the show. Now, gluten is an interesting one because, as we know, when we consume gluten as someone living with celiac disease, it is very inflammatory and very dangerous for our health. It causes so many problems and we want to avoid it like the plague. So it only goes hand in hand to ask this question, and I am a massive advocate of no question is ever a silly question or a bad question. So if you ever have a question that, you think is a little bit silly, or you think it's, something that you should know the answer to, or you're too scared to ask, please know that I will never judge you on your questions. And you should always feel free to message me at The Healthy Celiac on Instagram and ask your questions because it helps me to help you. So I hope that makes sense. All right, so let's get into it. So can gluten be absorbed through the skin? Now, if you know anything about skincare, then skincare, we basically rub it on our skin, which is our largest organ, and many products, let's just say many products, a lot of products have toxic chemicals in that skincare. And when you rub it onto your skin, it actually absorbs into your bloodstream. So it is quite well known that what we put on our skin does go into our body itself. And, there's been studies done on newborn babies, and they've tested their umbilical cord straight after they've been born. And there's been hundreds and hundreds of toxic chemicals in that baby's umbilical cord. So it goes without saying that our body does absorb what goes onto its skin. But gluten, however, does not get absorbed through our skin. And the reason for that is the molecules are too big to be absorbed into our skin, which is fantastic. So it's something that we don't need to stress that we're going to get glutened as such from putting body care products onto our skin that maybe contain gluten. But there is a but. And this is where I say it's important to be wary of what you are putting on your body, because not only can some products make their way into your mouth, we do want to be making sure we're not putting chemicals on our body, and that's a whole nother topic, that's a whole nother story. But as far as gluten goes, then, not every single person with celiac disease has to be 100% careful about this, because if you're putting products on your body and there's no chance of them being in your mouth, then you probably don't have to stress too much about it. Some people cannot touch gluten at all. So they'll have celiac disease, but they'll also have an allergy to touching the actual gluten. So that is not every single celiac. So you may find that you can touch gluten and you don't have like a topical kind of reaction to it, whereas the next person may not be able to touch it. Me, myself, I can touch it for short periods of time. So if I make my girls a sandwich, they will have gluten sandwich, and my husband, same, he will eat gluten bread. And I can touch it, I'll take it out the bag, I can, put the spread on it, make it, cut it up, whatever, and then wash my hands. And I'm fine. I don't have an issue with that. Some people cannot touch gluten at all in skincare products. So if that's you, then you are going to definitely want to make sure you're not buying anything with gluten in it whatsoever. And if that's not you, if you find that you can touch gluten and you're fine with it in skincare, then there's certain products that I would say you just need to be careful of. And if you've got a child with celiac disease, then again, depending on their age, it would just depend on what you're putting on them. So little kids, I'd be very careful. I wouldn't put anything on a little child that's got gluten in the body care product, because kids just have a way of getting skin in them. You know, like, I don't know, if you've got kids, you get this. If you're around kids, you probably understand. They suck on their skin. They're always putting their fingers in their mouth. They're actually pretty gross with what they do. So we don't know how much over time that, you know, if they're sucking on their skin and they've got sun cream on, or, you know, just something that's on them. Hair care products, I find, is probably the thing that I would say definitely avoid anything with gluten in, because it's very high chance of it washing down over your face, getting into your mouth, that type of thing. Lip balms, lip glosses, definitely avoid anything with gluten in. Things like that, those really obvious things that could very easily make their way into your mouth, are things that I would say be very, very careful of. Now, when it comes to skincare products, they are not labeled like food. We don't have the same sort of regulations around body care or skincare products, hair care products, whatever you want. Let's just call it beauty products. So any beauty products, they don't have any sort of labeling laws like we have for food, where they have to clearly label, you know, in the correct terminology. They'll go about it in very funny ways of labeling those ingredients. So it can make it quite tricky, and it can be labeled in so many different ways. The ingredients for a gluten ingredient can be many, many different ways. Inside Ultimate Celiac System, my signature course for celiacs, you will find a huge overview of this and a lot more information in depth of what to look for, and all of those ingredients that if you need to, you know, you need to really nut this out, then that's all included in my program. So go ahead and check that out over on my website, belindawhelan.com, just to learn a little bit more about that, because that might be something just to make this so much easier for you. But I just wanted to answer that question today, because knowing what you're putting on your body is super important, and knowing that your body doesn't absorb gluten might just help you feel a little bit more at ease. But if you are the sort of person who knows that you are reacting to gluten and you want to make sure that you're cutting that out, then you definitely need to be looking at that and making sure that your products are free from gluten. And, you know, some companies are getting a bit more switched onto this, and they are writing on their products gluten-free, because it is a big market. You know, you'll find more products now that are labeled, you know, vegan friendly or gluten-free or toxic-free. So, you know, start looking at labels when you are shopping, and start noticing these labeling. And, you know, it might even be worth reaching out to these companies and saying thank you, because the more that people, you know, do that and recognize that these products are valuable to us as a celiac community, gluten-free community, you know, the more they're going to keep doing it, and the more they're going to, you know, understand that we see them and we feel seen and we feel heard. So I love it when products have got gluten-free written on it, because it makes it so much easier. I'm not even joking. I don't know all of the names of all of the things that we need to look for. I have a list that I refer to, and, you know, I've got my favorite products that I stick to, and I know that they're safe. And then sometimes if my daughter's looking for things, or we're just looking at products together, I can look through and check out those ingredients. So it's definitely something to have an awareness around and learn more about, because, you know, like I said, no question is a silly question, and you don't know what you don't know. And the more that you learn, the more that you can look after your health, your body for the future. And especially if you have children with celiac disease, or you have children now that may develop celiac disease in the future, you've got those answers there to guide them and to help them to live a really great life with celiac disease. Because, you know, it can be challenging, don't get me wrong, but the more you know, the more you can look after yourself. So I hope that helps, and I hope that answers that question for you this week, and have learnt something new and can take this information and move forward with your celiac journey. So thanks so much for listening and tuning in, and I look forward to talking with you again very, very soon. Have a great week. Take care. Bye. If you enjoyed this episode, head to belindawhelan.com to get yourself a free copy of my exclusive ebook, 11 Mistakes People Make Going Gluten-Free Living with Celiac Disease.